Hello students. So in previous classes I discussed about some of the important characteristics with respect to appropriate problems for neural network learning. So as I told, the appropriate problems for neural network learning, so it is based on some of the important characteristics like instances that are represented by many attribute valued pairs. The next characteristic is the target function output may be discrete valued, real valued, or a vector of several real or discrete valued attributes. The third one is the training examples may contain errors. The next one is the long training times are acceptable. The very next one is fast evaluation of learned target function may be required. And the last characteristic is the ability of humans to understand the learned target function, which is not important. So I have discussed these characters in detail with respect to appropriate problems for neural network learning. So in today's class I am going to discuss the architectures of artificial neural networks. So an artificial neural network can be divided into three parts or three layers you can say. So which are known as input layer, hidden layer. Hidden layer is also known as the intermediate layer or invisible layers. Then output layer. So these are the three parts or the three layers of an artificial neural network. So I have already illustrated an artificial neural network, and I have shown how exactly the representation of input layer, hidden layer, and the output layers are. So as you know, input layer is responsible for receiving the information or receiving the data, signals, features, or measurements from the external environment. Then these inputs are usually normalized within the limit values produced by the activation functions. So as we know, the input layer, it will directly receive the data or receive the information from the external environment. Then these inputs are normalized within the limit values produced by the activation functions. The next one is hidden layer, or it is also known as intermediate or the invisible layers. So these hidden layers are composed of neurons which are responsible for extracting the patterns associated with the process or the system being analyzed. Then these layers perform most of the internal processing from a network. So we can say that the hidden layers are responsible for processing. So they will accept the data from input layers, then they will perform the data processing. So that is hidden layers. The next one is output layer. So this layer is composed of neurons and it is responsible for producing and presenting the final network outputs or the final network results. So it will result from the processing performed by the neurons in the previous layers. So output layer is responsible for producing and presenting the final network outputs or the final network results. So these are what the important layers of an artificial neural network. Next comes the different categories of the ANN architectures. Right here, the main architectures of artificial neural network, considering the neuron disposition and how they are interconnected and how its layers are composed. So based on these parameters, the architectures are divided as single layer feed forward network, multi-layer feed forward network, recurrent or feedback network, then mesh network. So these are what the different types or the categories of ANN architectures, and these categories are based on the neuron disposition and how they are interconnected and how its layers are composed. So I'll discuss these categories one by one. So the first type of architecture is a single layer feed forward architecture. So this artificial neural network has just one input layer and a single neural layer, and this neural layer, it will act as an output layer here, as you can see in this figure. So this figure illustrates a simple layer feed forward network composed of n inputs and m outputs. So this single layer feed forward architecture, it is composed of one input layer and one neural layer, and this neural layer will act as an output layer. So in turn, this network is composed of n inputs and m outputs. And what about the flow of information? So the information always flow in a single direction. That is, the flow of information is a unidirectional. It is in one direction. That is from input layer to the output layer. So this is what the single layer feed forward architecture. The next category is a multi-layer feed forward architecture. So this artificial neural feed forward network, it consists of multiple layers. There is a one input layer and one or more hidden layers, then an output layer. So this figure illustrates a feed-forward network with the multiple layers composed of one input layer with n sample signals, then two hidden neural layers consisting of n1 and n2 neurons respectively, and finally one output neuron layer which is composed of m neurons, representing the respective output values of the problem being analyzed. So as you can see in this multi-layer feed forward architecture, there is a single input layer which is composed of n inputs and a single output layer which is composed of m number of outputs. In between input layer and output layer, there are multiple hidden layers, one or more hidden layers. And what about the flow of information? So the data flow or the flow of information is always in one direction. That is from input layer to hidden layers, then from hidden layers to the output neural layers. So data flow is unidirectional. This is multi-layer feed forward architecture. The next one is a recurrent or feedback architecture. So in these networks, the output of neurons are used as the feedback input for the other neurons. So this is what one specialty here. The output of neurons, they are used as the feedback input for the other neurons, as you can see in this figure. So this is what input layer, and this is what the hidden layer, and this is output layer. So output of this neuron, this is what the output, right? So output of neuron is used as a feedback input for the other neurons. So this is how the recurrent or the feedback architecture work. So this figure illustrates an example of a perception network with feedback where one of its output signal is feedback to the middle layer. So these output signals are feedback to or feedback input to the middle layers. So this is recurrent or feedback architecture. And the last category is mesh architecture. The main features of networks with mesh structures reside in considering the spatial arrangement of neurons for the pattern extraction purpose. That is, the spatial localization of neurons is directly related to the process of adjusting their synaptic weights and threshold. So this is what the mesh architecture, as you can see. So in this figure, as it illustrates an example of a coherent network where its neurons are arranged within a two-dimensional space. So this architecture is in the form of a mesh network. So in this particular architecture, the neurons are arranged within a two-dimensional space. And this type of mesh architecture is used in the pattern extraction purpose as well as in the spatial localization of neurons, which is directly related to the process of adjusting their synaptic weights and threshold. So these are what the different categories of ANN architectures, right? That is single layer feed forward architecture, multi-layer feed forward, and recurrent or feedback, then mesh architecture. So these are what the different types of ANN architectures. Then the next important concept is perceptrons, right? Here, perceptron is a single layer neural network. So one type of ANN system which is based on a unit. So that unit is known as a perceptron. So perceptron is nothing but it is a type of neural network, or you can say it is a single layer neural network, which I'll illustrate later, right? So a perceptron takes a vector of real valued inputs, then it calculates a linear combination of these inputs, then it will produce an output, and it will produce an output as 1 if the result is greater than some threshold. Otherwise, it will produce the result as -1. So is it clear how perceptron work? So perceptron takes a vector of real valued inputs, then it calculates a linear combination of these inputs, then it will produce an output. So it will produce an output as 1 if the result is greater than some threshold. Otherwise, it will produce an output as -1. So more precisely, the given inputs x1 to xn and the output, that is O of x1 to xn, computed by the perceptron. So here I have given one of the representation. Now consider the given inputs as x1 to xn and the output, that is the O of x1 to xn. So this output is computed by this particular perceptron. Here output is equal to 1 if w0 plus w1 x1 plus w2 x2. So if this result is greater than 0, otherwise it will produce an output as -1. Means if this result is greater than 0, then the output is 1, otherwise the output is -1. So in this perceptron, W1 is a real valued constant or weight that determines the contribution of input Xi to a perceptron output. Here you can notice that the quantity minus W0 is a threshold that the weighted combination of inputs W1 x1 plus W2 x2 up to W1 xn. So it must surpass in order for the perceptron to produce an output as that is 1 plus 1, right? So to simply notice or to simplify this above notation, we imagine an additional constant input, that is x naught equal to 1, so allowing us to write the above inequality as a summation of wi xi greater than 0, where I is equal to 0 to n, or in vector form as w bar dot x bar greater than 0. So here you can also observe this particular notation. So this is just to simplify the notation, right? So here we imagine an additional constant input, that is x naught equal to 1, and it allows us to write the previous inequality as summation of wi xi greater than 0, where I range from 0 to n, or in a vector form as w vector dot x vector, so which is greater than 0. So we'll sometimes write the perceptron function like this, that is order of x vector is equal to sgn of w vector dot x vector. Here sgn of y is equal to 1 if y is greater than 0, otherwise it is -1, right? So learning a perceptron involves choosing the values for weights, that is w naught, w1, w2 up to wn. Therefore, the hypothesis space capital H, which is nothing but the space of candidate hypothesis, considering in a perceptron learning as the set of all possible real valued weight vectors, and it is given as hypothesis space H is equal to W vector, or W vector belongs to perceptron of n plus 1. So this is what one perceptron notation here. So this is what the representation of the hypothesis space, that is the space of candidate hypothesis, which is considered in a perceptron learning, and it is given as the set of all possible real valued weight vectors. Here we have one question. So why do we need a weights and bias? Because weight shows the strength of particular node, and a bias value allows you to shift the activation function curve up or curve down. That's why we need weights and bias in the perceptron representation or in perceptron notations. So this is what one perceptron illustration. As you can see, the inputs and constant, then weights, then a weighted sum. So summation is used here for this weights, then a step function, then it will produce the output. So this is what one perceptron illustration. So in the next class I am going to discuss representational power of perceptrons, where I am going to give you the actual representation of the perceptrons. Thank you.